it's a privilege to be up here today as your Race of Life Face of Norwich. Before you all begin running, as I know you're all very keen to get started, I'm here to tell you a little bit about my story and why I'm up here today speaking to you all. It all began in the beginning of January of last year when I was on holiday with my boyfriend Brad for 5 weeks travelling around Australia. When 2 weeks into the holiday, while showering one morning, I came across a small, hard lump appear in my left breast. Once out of the shower, I asked Brad to have a feel just to make sure I wasn't being silly, but he too could feel the lump. And due to my age of only 25, we both presumed it must be just a hormonal lump and would just go away. But over the next 2 weeks, the lump wouldn't leave my mind, and every morning in the shower, it was still there. I could feel it getting larger and harder as the time went on, so emailed my doctors when I returned to the UK to organise an appointment. I had convinced myself that it must be a cyst, as I knew nobody of my age that had been diagnosed with cancer, and I didn't even think it was possible. So along I went to the doctors, completely sure it was all going to be fine. After a good check, my doctor also thought it must be a cyst, due to my age, but luckily decided to refer me on to the hospital just to make sure. I now had to wait 2 weeks for an appointment, which seemed a very long wait. As I'd been off for a month from my hairdressing job, I threw myself back into work and concentrated on catching up with friends and family and all the other things. The day of my appointment came around fast, and at this point I was unaware it was the first of many hospital trips. After a few hours of being prodded and poked, and having had an ultrasound, 2 mammograms and a biopsy, I was finally allowed home. I was not prepared with how invasive the biopsy was, and spent the rest of the week feeling very sore and very bruised. I chose to tell no one of my lump, as I felt worrying everyone with what was likely to be nothing was a waste of time. After all, I was still convinced that I was far too young for it to be anything serious. The following week, on the 24th of February 2014, a date which is now forever etched into my memory, I was back at hospital with Brad to get my results. We were taken through to a small, clinical-looking room and sat to wait a few minutes for my consultant. She finally came in, sat down opposite with a handful of notes, looked at me and said those awful words, "I'm sorry, Laura, it's breast cancer." From that moment, my whole world fell apart and my life had changed forever. I was terrified and completely overwhelmed, but time just stood still. My consultant explained that although they knew it was cancerous, they still as yet did not know if it had spread or what grade it was, which would also require further tests and another biopsy. The hardest part, after hearing those awful words myself, was then breaking the news I had cancer to my family and friends, particularly as I didn't yet know how bad it was myself. Everyone rallied round, and within days my house looked like a florist's with all the deliveries I received. Over the next few weeks, I endured many hospital trips for more tests, scans, and a lot of needles. And by the second week in March, I knew I had an aggressive type of breast cancer, and the lump had tripled in size from 15 millimetres to over 55 millimetres. This was classed as a stage 3 and had spread to my lymph nodes. I was devastated. On the 18th of March, I went in for my first chemotherapy session. I was the youngest on the ward by a long way, and extremely nervous with what to expect, but was quickly put at ease by all the lovely nurses on the Waybourne unit. My first session seemed to go on for hours, and once they'd finished pumping me full of the poison, Brad was handed a large bag full of various steroids and anti-sickness tablets to take in the weeks between my chemo. It was all very daunting, and for the next few hours, all I could do was sit and wait for the side effects to kick in, and soon enough, I was hanging over the toilet bowl, being violently ill. Within 2 weeks, the next main side effect kicked in, and my hair began to fall out in clumps. I had already cut my hair much shorter in preparation for this, but the first day that I ended up with my hair in my hands, I felt physically sick. Being a hairdresser, this was also one of the worst parts for me, but I took control and organised a few friends to come to the salon in support and help me shave it off. My colleague, who did the deed, was more nervous than I was, and we both ended up in tears throughout the evening. But once it was done, this was a massive weight off my shoulders. I'm sure the bottle of Prosecco that I'd drunk beforehand had helped me calm my nerves. But as the wave of compliments came in about my new do, I realised that I'd done the right thing, and actually I quite liked the bald look. My chemotherapy went on for 19 weeks, and by the halfway point it was making my life very difficult, and I was very ill. I was exhausted and felt drained the whole time, so I spent the majority of the days in bed or on the sofa. Finally, I had my last chemotherapy session on the 7th of July. This was an amazing feeling to be finished, but my next task was soon to come. On the 1st of August, I had my first ever operation of a mastectomy to my left breast and full lymph node clearance. I was extremely nervous about this, but in a funny way, after living with a lump for over 5 months, I was really truly ready for them to take my boob. The operation went well and I recovered very quickly, although living with a prosthesis is very difficult. 2 months after my operation, I went through 15 sessions of radiotherapy, and now I'm on hormonal tablets for at least the next 5 years. I have also undergone 17 injections of Herceptin since May of last year, where I have one every 3 weeks. But I'm particularly excited today as I'm due for my 18th and final one this week, which means by Wednesday evening I will have finished all of my active treatments. I still have a long way to go with other things like reconstruction, but I'm just happy that the first part of my journey is almost done and I can begin to put it behind me. So now you all know about why I'm here, about my diagnosis, it brings me on to why I'm here today. Some of the drugs that I have been lucky to have had available to me throughout the year have been found by Cancer Research UK, which means if it wasn't for all you here today helping to raise lots of money, people like me may not survive to be able to tell our stories. I, like you, have also lost family members and friends to cancer. However, I can see that today there are far more treatments available and a lot of new drugs being found all the time to help us not only survive the first few years after a diagnosis, but to live a long and happy life after cancer. I believe survival rates can also be helped with all being more body aware and knowing what is normal for us. If you find something that is not normal for you, then please see your doctor to get it checked out. Catching a diagnosis early means that it is more likely for it to be treated and potentially cured. But if you're told by your doctor that you are too young, please push for a second opinion. Because in my case, this would have made a difference between my stage 3 diagnosis and a stage 4 terminal diagnosis. I'm also now the very first boobette volunteer in East Anglia for Copperfield, where my aim is to spread awareness of breast cancer to women of all ages. And thought while I'm here, I was going to share a little bit of boob love with you all. So I want to ask that you all take 5 minutes later today to check your breasts. And if you get a chance, can you tweet me with the hashtag #feelthoseboobs to let me know that you've done this. And also share this amongst your family and friends and any other women that you know. I hope you all have a fun day today, and before I finish, I just would like to thank Rachel from Cancer Research UK and the Heart team for inviting me up here on stage to be your face of Race for Life and to share my story. So good luck, have fun, raise lots of money and enjoy the race. Thank you very much.
Come on, a big round of applause on that. That was a journey and a story. Come on, let's hear it for Laura. Thank you, Laura, so much. Now you can see from Laura's story why it's so important for you to return your sponsorship money. There is a fact though that I'm going to share with you today.